People, deluded. Breaking news to all Arsenal fans out there. I'm sure a lot of you are looking over blogs, news bulletins, headlines, etc. for anything Arsenal related, and we've been dealt a huge blow, one that gives us a lot of nerves, people. To be fair, it's probably to be expected. Thomas Partey has undergone a specialist procedure, people, on a thigh injury and is now out for the rest of 2023. You know, in terms of his rehab and looking after him, we have failed in that test. Apparently, it's put a spanner in the works, and Arsenal are now focusing on central midfield versus up front now. Apparently, we already have a constricted budget in January, and that's going to make it more difficult. We've been linked with Douglas Luiz historically, and Romano has linked us with him again. Zubiamendi links won't go away, and as you know, Zubiamendi is a player I would love at the carpet, people. I describe him as a defensively switched on younger Jorginho. Now, him and Mikel Arteta are both from the same region in Spain. When you think of a Spanish midfielder, he very much is the stereotypical Spanish midfielder. Very good technical level, very good passing range, very good in tight spaces, very good at building play. And also, I don't have his defensive metrics to hand, people. His passing range is good, his close control and close passes are good. But as I was saying as well, for me, his footballing IQ is what stands out. He knows where to be. The best footballers are the best thinkers and the best decision makers. And I think in his young career, he has displayed that already. I think he'd be the perfect player to partner with Declan Rice and allow Declan Rice to play as a number 8. As I was saying before I started waffling, people, I believe his defensive metrics, while I have none to hand, I think he's very good at interceptions, retrieving the ball, making tackles. A lot of things could do with a lot of work. It's easy to see why in recent days he has been linked with Bayern Munich, Manchester City, Manchester United, etc., etc. Historically, he's primarily been linked with Arsenal Football Club and Barcelona. We tried to allegedly go in for him last January. It didn't happen. He was linked with Barcelona, and Xavi and former Barca players and current Barca players were on the offensive to sweeten him up. But for all of that talk, he did not make the move. We heard last Jan he didn't want to make the move because Sociedad were midway through their season and stuff like that. You can't imagine that changes a year in January. You know, anything can change in life. But with them fighting for whatever they're fighting for in the domestic La Liga basis, and they've actually qualified for the last 16, I don't think he'll leave. He has a release clause, though, of about 50-odd million pounds, people, which is right up our street, really. Ironically, we signed Partey for a release clause. I think he'd be perfect. As I said, he'd be a great 6. He's more of a cultural number 6 than the Declan Rice 6. I think he'll be great with Declan Rice, and I think he'd be a fantastic long-term option for Arsenal Football Club. We have been linked with Vlahovic. Allegedly, Arsenal still, Arteta, that's his still preferred target. We've been linked with the young Brazilian of Corinthians, Moscardo. I can't pronounce his name, forgive me. Chelsea tried to buy him in the summer, and links won't go away. Apparently, we've got links to Kai Jarupkin, his agent, and obviously Edu's got Brazilian heritage and obviously ties in Brazil. He's going to cost a pretty penny, but if we're able to bring him in, he's another man able to play in midfield and at centre half that could tie in long term. I don't know if he'd affect us immediately. I've done a video on potential strikers. Apparently Guirassy open to a Premier League move and will cost 15 million. We have once again been linked with Ivan Ferguson. He signed a new Brighton deal, people. So there's a lot for Mikel Arteta and Edu to think about with what's gone on in the season anyways, and also in January. For me, we need a central midfielder. It is vital. It's going to cost a lot of money. You know, teams don't want to sell their players. Douglas Luiz and Cole probably proved that right. You're going to have to pay an inconvenience fee, people. And again, in the same way I find myself looking at pictures of one day seeing Gabriel Jesus, Saka and Martinelli on a consistent basis, I did want to see Partey and Rice together, but we'll have to wait. Now, big up you lot for tuning in, people. Again, let me know your thoughts on everything we've considered. Now, I know when it comes to strikers, we've been linked with Ivan Toney and stuff like that. I would prefer Vlahovic because Mikel Arteta a couple of years ago aggressively tried to sign him for the club. So you must know how he can tie into us. You know, I think the summer we signed Jesus, that January was linked with him. Obviously, where you look at Douglas Luiz, I don't think he improves our level to a great standard, but if you make some smart additions and get some quality players, indirectly the standard of the football club has already been risen. I would have Douglas Luiz purely because first and foremost, Edu and Arteta like him a lot, and we seem to be linked with him a lot. We did try to buy him so he could tie into that. Where the issues are, Aston Villa, you know, they're under a former manager, Unai Emery, apologies. They're flying, people. They're doing their thing. Why would they want to sell him mid-season? They gave him a new contract last season, and they'll probably do that again. So you have to pay an inconvenience fee, which, again, we know it's not my money, and we know transfer fees have gone ridiculous. If it was for 30, 40 odd million quid, bring Douglas Luiz in. They're going to probably want something that he's not worth, really. And the same logic kind of goes to Ivan Toney, who's got one foot out of the Brentford door, 18 months left on his contract. You know, Brentford are going to lose two players in Mbeumo and Wissa to the Africa Cup of Nations, so they're going to need Toney to cover it. They've obviously stood by him as well, so Toney kind of owes that to them. And I think the summer is where they're more open to selling Toney. So you'd probably have to overpay for Toney, overpay for Douglas Luiz. With the injury to Pedro Neto, it's kind of gone quiet over in that regards on the Pedro Neto front, but you're going to have to overpay. Zubiamendi, again, he's got a release clause, which is one bonus to Arsenal against Sociedad. And obviously, we gave them Tini on loan. So I hope there was some indirect conversations. But again, if you activate his release clause, the player has got to want to join Arsenal at that time. I think there's plenty of reasons to want to join Arsenal. We've got an exciting project. You can see the midfield, it needs a rebuild. Jorginho, El Nene and Partey, for whatever reason, not going to be here forever. Could play with Declan Rice. Mikel Arteta has shown that he collectively is getting Arsenal back to where they want to be, people. But he's also displayed that he can improve individual players. You've seen it with Xhaka. You see what Declan Rice says and how he's molding Declan Rice. And there's plenty of up. You see Odegaard as well. So Zubiamendi on top of the law of the Premier League, that could be a great attraction. I personally think in January, we're probably more likely to see the profiles kind of the Jorginhos, the Trossards and Kyrgios, in that players that didn't necessarily break the bank per se. And, you know, definitely where Trossard and Jorginho are concerned, you know, Trossard wasn't signing a new deal and he was alienated from training at Brighton. Jorginho has made clear to Chelsea that you're allowed to depart. So I think it will kind of be those players, or if not those players, less household names really. And you'd imagine where central midfield is concerned, you've got the household names. You know, we've been linked with, for example, Zubiamendi, Tchouaméni, Douglas Luiz. Would love all of them. I don't believe in the Tchouaméni links at all, but it's probably the summer. As we know, January is a reactive window. In an ideal world, Arsenal wouldn't have to buy anyone in midfield in January or any position, because we'd have a lot covered. But as we know, injuries, loss of form, players upset over game time, contracts. January is a reactive window, really. So we're going to have to react on that front. But yeah, for me, I do believe we could do with another defensive body or bodies in the back line, even though we've got good options. I think a striker and a winger, like central midfield, is of the utmost importance. I think they're all important. Goals win games. You know, you look at the last couple of games, really, you know, Newcastle, the only problem we had is not really creating chances, which signing a striker doesn't necessarily provide that. But assuming we had a better striker that could take half chances, that turns a couple of defeats into draws. You look at the Chelsea and Spurs games where we were terrible in certain aspects of the game, irrelevant from playing from our strikers. But had we have got a striker, we might have been still saying the same things about those games, but we'd have got the 3 points on the board. So you can turn some defeats into draws, some draws into victory, ultimately more points on the board, really. As I've said previously, I think a striker, a winger, you know, primarily on the right-hand side, but if they can play both, that's great. But a striker, a winger, for me, central midfield, and we're cooking, and some defensive options. Centre mid has to be resolved. As I said, whatever you think about our defenders, whatever you think about the players who play up front and on the wings, we've got some good options. Midfield, there's a lot of question marks. Jorginho probably going to have to play more than Arteta would have liked, but a decent player. But, you know, you kind of sign up for the first half against Chelsea if you deploy Zinchenko and Jorginho a bit weak on the transitions, or you have the Spurs game where Jorginho came on. To be fair, Jorginho was good against Newcastle. He was also good against City, but there's obviously that caveat. And also, Jorginho's the wrong side of 30. He does have the option to extend his deal, but I'm sure Arsenal next season or in general would like him to keep doing what he's doing, but be on the peripheral of things. El Nene hasn't played for the best part of over a year. He has been getting minutes here and there, but longevity, that's not there. Partey is a quality player, but availability is the best trait you can have. Right now, we don't have that with Partey. And you know what? I'd love for Partey and Mikel Arteta to one day speak on these injuries, because it seems like it's always happening in training. One big law of when we signed Partey is he didn't have any significant injuries at Atletico Madrid. So I'm not sure what that is saying. But Declan Rice is the only one that plays in midfield as a real midfielder, not like the Havertz, the Odegaards, and players like that players that sort of 8 role and they can play in other roles. People that are likely to play with Declan Rice or in place of Declan Rice. I think you've only got Declan Rice there, really, and that's actually the one luxury we have afforded ourselves, because with Partey gone, we haven't lacked a physical presence in midfield, really. I think midfield needs to be sorted. Edu and Mikel Arteta were both central midfielders. This should be the one area where we have longevity. Could you imagine a world where you've got Declan Rice able to play as an 8 or a 6, develop as an 8, fair enough, do your thing, can play as a 6. You've got a backup number 6, so that in Partey's absence, really, that's why I would have liked Lavia, really. You've got You know, someone on par with Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, another 8, and probably another 6. 4 great options there. I think we'd be cooking. And then you've got the Odegaards, the Fabio Vieiras, the Smith Rowe, the Havertz, people that could do a job there. I think then we're kind of laughing. But until we get such people, we're at our mercy. And to be fair, you know, we regard even if you sign Declan Rice, Xhaka and Partey, you know, even if we signed Declan Rice, Xhaka was always fit, and Xhaka stayed, and Partey was always fit. I'd still think we need to sign another midfielder. We know we've been light in midfield. We know how injuries can affect us. We've seen it in the last 2 seasons prior. This season's been a bit different because from August we've had to cope. So we've almost signed up for this. Again, I give the club the luxury. You did bring in some good players, but you spent 65 million on Havertz, who can play in midfield, but doesn't really, you know, address our concerns in that regards. And also we knew we needed a central midfielder. Fair enough, the club may have tried to sign X, Y, and Z that we don't know about, but it's a results-driven business. You know, we might win a game. There's been games we've lost, not too many, but historically there's been games we've lost and we played well. There's been games we've won and we haven't and we haven't deserved to lose. But fundamentally, it's a results-driven business. Just like in the transfer market, there's trying and there's actually doing it, really. And if we struggle with injuries, we're in issues, really. Like, you know, we're hoping Jorginho, Declan Rice, El Nene, there's no setbacks. You know, Kirill did spend a year in Italy playing as a central mid-centre defensive midfielder, but Arteta hasn't gone for that. Zinchenko can be utilised in that role. He hasn't gone for that. Even Benjamin White, but, you know, Benjamin White's an exclusive fullback / right centre-half at Arsenal Football Club. So we'll have to see, really and truly. But I do think we'll get a central midfielder in January. I don't know if it will be Zubiamendi and relative household names like him and Douglas Luiz, but I think we can't afford to not buy a central midfielder. Where striker and wing is concerned, we might wait until the summer, because even if you spend 65 to 80 to 100 on Tony, Osman's going to have a year left on his deal in the summer, and there might be some other targets, really. Like, for example, let's just assume it's not going to happen, but just off the basis of we've been linked with Ivan Toney, we've been linked with Douglas Luiz, we've been linked with Pedro Neto. Just say we bought those three players. That's probably touching over 100 million, maybe 1/5 kind of region. Do Arsenal have that money to spend in January? Respectfully to the players, because you get what you pay for. But is it value for money? Could money have been spent elsewhere? If these guys came in and we won a title, nobody cares. But you might look at it a bit funny in the summer. So we'll have to see. We're going to be linked with plenty of names and stuff like that. But it is what it is in that regards. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on Vlahovic, on Ivan Toney, on Douglas Luiz, on Moscato. Or would you go for Ivan Ferguson? Would you take a chance on Guirassy or someone like Boniface? Let me know your thoughts on everything Arsenal in general. Let me know your thoughts on everything we discussed through this video. As usual, God bless you all for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and have a butchers or have a look at the other videos that I've released. Don't forget, on Saturday, Arsenal play Burnley live from 3 p.m, people. So I'll be doing a watch-along live from 2 p.m. So do me a favor, turn on your notification bells, leave a comment. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't. Most importantly, stay safe, stay blessed, and we'll link up again soon.
There's always just that accurate red flag, defending.
I think it's like